Hello and welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras, and coming up in today's newscast, the wave of Palestinian terror continuing as Israel prepares funding to beef up its border security. Meanwhile, in addition to defense, Jerusalem investing in deterrence against attacks, the High Court and coalition paving the way for restitutions as well as more punitive responses to terrorism. And finally, Israel's second ever astronaut, Eytan Stibbe, making history. The Israeli pilot blasting off and docking with the International Space Station over the weekend. Another day and sadly another attack. Israeli security forces responding to a series of attempted attacks around Judea and Samaria as they simultaneously pick up the pressure against terror suspects and their affiliates. ILTV reporter Asaf Nissan with the details.
Two more Israelis reported injured Monday morning as they were shot on their way to pray at Joseph's tomb in Shechem, or Nablus, in Judea and Samaria. The two men from the Breslov Hasidic community reported failing to coordinate the visit with Israeli defense forces and traveling through an unarmed roadblock before coming under fire by Palestinians nearby. But thankfully, the men in their group managing to reach an IDF checkpoint to receive first aid and extraction. And this, coming just hours after Palestinians seen vandalizing the shrine for the second day in a row. Video showing about 100 Palestinians breaking to the site, smashing objects and setting the tomb on fire before being dispersed. Then elsewhere, Israeli defense forces continuing to engage with suspected Palestinian militants, including the brothers of the Jenin terrorists who killed three in Tel Aviv last Thursday. According to the terrorist's father, the IDF fired at his wife and young son through the window of their car. However, the IDF saying the terrorists' two older brothers were in the vehicle and that they fired at the tires in order to later arrest them. Whoever it was, the passengers escaping, and the IDF instead wounding a passengering motorcyclist who opened fire on them during the operation. And the shooter identified as a 17-year-old who is said to have later died from his wounds. Meanwhile, in Hebron, soldiers shooting dead a Palestinian woman after she stabbed a border guard by the Tomb of the Patriarchs, and another woman near Bethlehem killed after rushing at soldiers in a suspicious manner while refusing both calls to stop and warning shots. The soldiers sadly suspected suicide by cop. Then finally, in efforts to prevent future attacks and infiltrations, the cabinet approving 360 million shekels to repair the security barrier and replace 40 kilometers of fencing with a 9-meter tall concrete wall. This, as two of the recent terrorists who entered Israel, including a Tel Aviv shooter last week, entering illegally through gaps in the seam line.
And now with more on the latest security updates, former IDF spokesperson to the foreign media, Lieutenant Colonel in the Reserves, Peter Lerner. Peter, between the two attacks on Joseph's tomb and the multiple stabbing, shooting attempts, what's your take on the last 24 hours of security operations?
So here's what we know. We know that the IDF is currently engaging, trying to address probably the three core issues of this recent wave of terror. First of all, is taking the fight to those would-be terrorists to try and make them have a sense of being pursued. They're doing that in order to make sure that they don't have an easy skip over into Israel and Israeli cities. The second component is strengthening the defenses. So we have this ongoing influx of battalions that are reinforcing the seam zone area. And finally, having rapid reaction capabilities in order to mobilize when intelligence comes in order to foil any potential threat as it happens. So I would say in the last 24 hours, we've seen ongoing IDF search and arrest activities. I think last night it was 13 Palestinians that have been detained, and this is ongoing. Of course, that comes with other challenges, and I think that the biggest challenge that the IDF has is maintaining the differentiation between the civilian population and those terrorists. In the meantime, it seems that Ramadan and the access to holy sites in Jerusalem over the weekend and on Friday seems to be continuing. So it looks like the message of differentiation is continuing.
To watch full episodes of ILTV's Israel Daily and tons of other content from Israel, visit our website at iltv.tv or download the ILTV Plus app.